Hello, I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Sri Lanka for a 3-day visit to improve bilateral ties and explore ways to bolster areas of energy, trade, connectivity, digitalization and defense between the two countries. He was welcomed with a ceremonial guard of honor at the Independence Square in Colombo this morning. India has always emerged as a steadfast ally of Colombo, playing a pivotal role in the debt-trapped Sri Lankan economic recovery. When the unprecedented economic turmoil struck Sri Lanka in 2022, India swiftly extended a lifeline to the country with assistance of over $4 billion. India also provided $500 million for purchase of petroleum products from India, credited $1 billion facility for supply of food items, medicines, fuel. 26 tons of drugs and medical supplies in April-May 2022 were also provided to Sri Lanka by India. India has also funded several projects in Sri Lanka, like providing $61.5 million grant to develop the Kankasant-Urai port, $600 million for development of 25 districts in Sri Lanka and various other projects as well. The timely financial support from India was a testament to the strong bond between the two countries. Joining us at this point is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat. We also have Dr. Monica Verma, Foreign Affairs expert, live with us. Major General Shashi Asana, defense expert, is joining us on the broadcast as well. Ambassador Sikri, let me make a start with you first. India and Sri Lanka enjoy an old bond, a close bond, and we've always risen to the occasion, haven't we, when it comes to helping the island nation in moments of trouble, instability, and also more recently, as we saw, economic complete bust.
Yes. Well, I think that this visit by our Prime Minister, as you said quite rightly, India and Sri Lanka have a special bond. Of course, Sri Lanka is a very important part of India's neighborhood-first foreign policy, and that in itself was enough to see that President Anura Dissanayake, who came to power only in September of last year, made his first overseas visit to India, and that was a very important gesture. Of course, he has been to China subsequently, but his first overseas visit was to India, and now within a few months, within 6 and 7 months, our Prime Minister is making a return visit to Sri Lanka, and it is the first foreign leader's visit, first state visit that President Anura Dissanayake is receiving in his first term as president. So this is a very, very special gesture from India to Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka to India. And I think it epitomizes the close relationship, the close understanding. And, you know, we must remember that President Anura Dissanayake has had a very interesting political history. He's been, part of the left movement, and he's been at one time very staunchly anti-Indian, outspokenly anti-Indian, and he's gone through all of that. But now, as he has been elected president, overwhelmingly been elected president, he has risen to the position of a statesman, to be a leader of his country and of the region, and he has fully realized the importance of South Asian regional solidarity, and it's in a reflection of that. And of course, as you quite rightly said, he took on board fully the fact that when Sri Lanka went through its absolutely agonizing economic crisis, when they were really looking at the end of the barrel, and their so-called deep friend China just turned the other way. It pretended that nothing was happening. It did nothing, did not lift a finger to help Sri Lanka. But India rose magnificently to the rescue of the people of Sri Lanka, and more than $4 billion in aid was given at that time to the people of Sri Lanka. And we also helped negotiate the IMF loan for Sri Lanka. And this combined effort has brought Sri Lanka out of the absolute, as I said, the bottom of the barrel situation that they were in, and thanks to their own, enduring entrepreneurship and the leadership, they are now looking very much on the way to recovery. But they still, of course, realize that they do need a continuous economic help from the neighborhood. And even this time, Prime Minister Modi has spoken about even the loans that we had given, turning some of them into grants, and further continuing to help the people of Sri Lanka in that way. We've seen, of course, the very special welcome that our Prime Minister received in Sri Lanka on the state visit this morning in the Independence Square, the wonderful parade, the wonderful ceremony. I think one of the first times that this has ever been done for a visiting head of government or head of state. And it was really awesome, very, very impressive, and very moving also. And the agreements that have been signed, the defense pact, this is very, very special to think that, you look at the history of the IPKF, but look at today, having overcome all all that, India and Sri Lanka have got together and decided that for regional solidarity, for regional stability, it's very important in the interests of both peoples to have this defense pact. And it is a broad-based defense pact. I'm sure it will grow and develop. It includes joint military exercises, it includes supply of equipment, and includes many other aspects that will be developed further. And as you said, many other agreements also have been signed in, financial cooperation, in health, in so many aspects. And I think that, India and Sri Lanka are well on the way to developing a model relationship. I think our Prime Minister also mentioned that they discussed the question of the fishermen. This is an issue which that the Legislative Assembly of Tamil Nadu has raised and they're very worried about. But that has been touched upon also, and it has been agreed that there will be an empathetic approach to dealing with the fishermen, and all such issues will be discussed. Many aspects of assistance to the eastern provinces have been agreed upon, including in Trincomalee for the energy power plant to be set up there, and so many other aspects. All in all, a very satisfying and really important visit, which will reverberate for a long time as having a very significant place in the history of the relationship between India and Sri Lanka.
All right, let me in fact quickly take that to Dr. Monica Verma as well. Dr. Monica Verma, now this is something which I'm sure Sri Lanka now realizes. We've seen murmurs of a possible China slant, tilt. However, Sri Lanka must realize, and I think now does realize, through the awarding, of course, of the Mitra Vibhushan Award to PM Modi, and also the plethora of bilateral agreements inked in this very visit, that India is the one that has always stuck by Sri Lanka, isn't it? From providing support, of course, through their troubled times in the past, to recent economic revival that we've accorded to them, in terms, of course, of a host of aid packages for revival of their most debt-trapped sectors, to, of course, building of port, to also, of course, development of their most poverty-stricken districts. I think India has really been a steadfast ally of Sri Lanka, hasn't it, Dr. Verma? Take us through how.
Of course, Uday, in fact, there was an early advantage when it comes to China. During the Civil War, China had supported Sri Lanka a lot. And at that time, when Sri Lanka was facing a lot of trouble from especially the West, which were raising the question of moral, how are they cracking down on the militants and all that stuff. I think China was one country that did not look at morals at all, but it had given a very unconditional support to Sri Lanka, and which is why the Rajapakshes, they cultivated China as one of their great friends. And we all know about the corruption that happened in Sri Lanka, and finally the culmination of it all in the year 2022, when Sri Lanka's own policies, they could not diversify their exports, they were not taking care of their foreign exchange, they were not working on the economy at all. The corruption that the Rajapakshes indulged in had basically made Sri Lanka hollow from within. And at the same time, they had used China for their own political, benefit. They thought that maybe if China is putting the money in Sri Lanka in the name of the Belt and the Road Initiative, then possibly it's going to create many big projects which they can easily show to the people of Sri Lanka and fool them into believing that no, the Rajapakshes have really done a great job. But that's not how it really turned out, because China ultimately had its own goal, what we call the stringer of pearls policy, and how China has been using not just Sri Lanka but various other countries in the Indian Ocean region, especially those which are closer to India, just to encircle India in the maritime domain. So China had its own goals in order to interfere in the Sri Lankan politics and also gain the confidence from the Sri Lankan leaders. And that we know the Chinese debt trap. They are funding all these projects not just in Sri Lanka but also in Pakistan, and Bangladesh under UNIS is also quite interested in that money. But ultimately, the Chinese money, it never leads to happy stories. All the money that China had put in Sri Lanka, all the projects that they started, they have not really been very fruitful, very successful. And the biggest example is the Hambantota port, which ultimately they had to lease out to China. So that sort of sacrifice of their sovereignty, the Sri Lankans had to do. And in the middle of all this, the crisis takes another form altogether when in the year 2022, they seriously were going to default on their external debt. And at that time, China, which was one of the major, countries that had given out money to them, so-called concessional loans, it was nowhere to be seen. So like Veena ma'am rightly pointed out that, it was not China, but it was India that came to the support of the Sri Lankans. And since then, and not just since then, there have been many what one can say, many tragedies in Sri Lanka in the past, right from the Easter bombing to the 2022 collapse of their economy, and even during the COVID pandemic. Prime Minister Modi has time and again reminded them. He has always been one of the first leaders in the subcontinent to assure, not just the subcontinent but also across the world, to assure the Sri Lankans that look, you are our neighbors, and in the spirit of good neighborly relationship, we are always going to watch your back. We are always going to be on your side, and that is exactly what India did. During the COVID pandemic, we extended great help to them. We gave them masks, medicines, support of all kinds. There was a specific fund which was also set up by India during the COVID pandemic. Then during the bombing as well, India has always been one of those countries which has always said that terrorism is not something that we support. So it unequivocally, condemned it. It always supported Sri Lanka even then. And finally in 2022, like Veeravan has already pointed out, India gave them a lot of support. And a lot of this support was not contingent on anything, unlike the Chinese who help you and then they expect you to give them access to your markets so that, the Chinese cheap products can come and ruin you. So I think that is one good thing that India did. India is one of those countries in the subcontinent which has always done the right thing, which has always behaved in a proper manner. And like you rightly said, today Dissanayake, I think, is one leader about whom there was not a lot of excitement or enthusiasm in New Delhi when he was going to become the president of the country, and the reasons were quite right because he comes from this Marxist political party. And even during the campaign, I remember him raising certain issues, like he spoke about this particular wind energy project in which India is investing, and he said that if India is going to invest in this project, then it's going to be a challenge for our sovereignty. And he had raised that he had like other subcontinental leaders, the way they use India card to play to shore up their own political career. He also had said something similar. So these things were leading to a lot of concerns that if this person comes into power, then how is it going to be with Sri Lanka? And cut to today, this person came into power in 2024, but in 2025 we can see this visit, which is Prime Minister Modi's fourth visit to Sri Lanka, is something which we can totally call a success. The defense pact, the memorandum of understanding they are going to sign on defense, I think is a big deal because
yes.
On one hand, we have China, which is talking about taking Hambantota and setting up an oil refinery and things like that. And amidst all this, we have one South Asian or subcontinental country which is coming up and saying that, no, hey, we do want India support in defense cooperation. So I think all these things, along with he getting the award, the highest civilian award for any foreign head of the state, is a big deal.
Okay.
So I think,
Major Shashi Asthana, let me quickly draw you in here now on, of course, this strong and old friendship of India and Sri Lanka. How important is it for Sri Lanka to consider our, long, varied and no questions asked or no strings attached support? I think that is the main highlight that is needed to be understood by the Sri Lankan leadership, that our support has always been without any strings attached, any debt attached, any clause attached to Sri Lanka, and has been there for many, many years and many, many decades and in various respects. Does Sri Lanka understand that? Does Sri Lankan leadership understand that? And is that coming through this visit as well?
Certainly, seeing the change of behavior of the president from the election rhetoric till how he has conducted the visit, certainly the realism has taken place, realization has taken place, and apparently the president understands that to govern a country, certainly you need India on your side. And the fact that the other two panelists have brought out enough facts to that effect, so I won't talk about that. But let me talk about the strategic issues as to why Sri Lanka is so important and why we need to have a partnership the way it is building now. Firstly, if we look at the map from the Gulf side, the main traffic of China and the main maritime traffic of any country, whether Japan or China or anybody, it passes through the area between Maldives and the Indian coast, and thereafter it goes to Sri Lanka, and that is the shortest route. So maximum shipping passes through that. That is the maximum vulnerability of China, and that is why China does what it does. That is so-called string of pearls strategy, which was mentioned. So if they had the Hambantota port, it makes all the sense for India to have some footprints in Trincomalee, and that is perhaps has been achieved to a great extent. That now, if they have a refinery in Hambantota, so we are now looking at a trilateral agreement to have a refinery in Trincomalee. In Trincomalee, there are other capacities as well.
Interestingly, yes, in partnership with the UAE as well.
Yeah, with the UAE as well. So in Trincomalee, there are other assets as well, which is in terms of the oil farms and the oil tankers. Now those tankers also we have been using, and we can use for building up our strategic oil reserves, because storage of oil has been a little problem, where these tankers which were not being used by Sri Lanka, they can be of good help. Similarly, we are looking at the energy and defense cooperation. When we are talking of defense cooperation, obviously, the biggest question mark for us was that we must have a president, and a president with the kind of leaning which was talked about. We were basically concerned about that he should not give space to the Chinese activities which are inimical to India. Now, that has been clarified, and that has been, I think, signed also. So with that, I think there is a fair amount of dependency. We have always been helping Sri Lanka in many ways. Their courses, their officers being trained here, their courses are being conducted here. Similarly, the maritime domain awareness. Now that is something which we need, because these are the choke points, because from Sri Lanka thereafter, as we go towards the Pacific, these are the Malacca, then you get Malacca Strait, and these are the various choke points where the contestation can take place with China. So if we have to dominate that area, we need this Sri Lanka on our side from that point of view. As far as the other issues are concerned, similarly, when we are looking at defense industry now, when we talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat and defense exports, we are looking at countries around us who cannot spend much what the Western weapons can give, because they are far too costly, and the weapons which China gives are not reliable. With Russia is involved with the war, so they can't give much. So there is an opportunity with us to export defense weapons, which I think these countries would also like to have in that context. So that is another area where perhaps we would be looking at. As far as the financial aid is concerned, I think India did give example of a good neighbor when we helped out not only financially, during COVID also. I must remind the viewers, India was a great help to Sri Lanka. In fact, all these countries, because of the Indian help and Indian vaccines, they were able to get over that crisis, which was a very big crisis for countries who do not manufacture vaccines. So there also, I think India helped a lot, beside those 4.5 billion financial aid in various forms.
Okay, Ambassador Sikri, let me quickly draw you in here on where you expect this partnership and alliance with Sri Lanka to go, in which direction post this visit of PM Modi, and also post the inking of several key agreements, as we've seen as well, 7 MOUs, and of course a host of other issues agreed upon as well.
I think that if the implementation of all these agreements starts quickly, and I think now under Prime Minister Modi, we've seen a great focus on quick implementation, and even in the last few months between President Anura Disanayake's visit to India and this one, there's been so much progress in working out these new agreements and looking at the future in a very positive and mutually beneficial light. I think that there should be a lot more focus in Sri Lanka and between Sri Lanka and India on people to people, on getting people to visit each other. There's a great deal of interest in Hindi in Sri Lanka, and a great deal of interest in getting a degree in studying Hindi, in Indian culture and civilization. There's so much in common, and there's so much interest among the very highly educated people of Sri Lanka. The education has really made great strides there. I work very closely with Sri Lanka in the field of gender issues, on the field of violence against women, and so many issues like that. But it's enormously important and good to be in Sri Lanka Lanka and see the goodwill that there is. We need to build upon that. We need to see what the interest is of the people of Sri Lanka to come and study in India, to visit India, to do medicine, engineering, other things. And similarly, for our people to go there, and for a lot of universities in each country to have study centers of each other. India Study Center in a Colombo University, which has already been there. It is there, but it should be developed much more. And similarly, a Sri Lanka Study Center in a university in India, both in North India and in South India, which will create a lot of interest in studying each other's, problems, in studying each other, how we can mutually overcome our problems. And I certainly think, as I said, that in India's neighborhood first foreign policy, Sri Lanka is one shining star, very, very good example of a successful relationship that had been evolved. It's interesting today, all issues were mentioned about the Tamils, about the rights of the Tamils in Sri Lanka, about the fishermen, every issue. There was not one that was left out, and on each issue, a mutually beneficial formulation, wording, outcome was very much there, which really highlights the positiveness and the strength of the relationship between our two countries.
Yes, G. Kumar Sithambram is also in fact joining us now live, representative of Sri Lanka Tourism. In fact, he's live with us from Colombo. Welcome, thank you for speaking with us today. How is this visit of Prime Minister Modi is being perceived there in Sri Lanka, Mr. Sithambram? How is this visit panning out there?
Yeah. Good evening, all of you all, and it's a great feel, actually, I would say, like, rather than talking anything word, because this people of Sri Lanka is overwhelmed at the moment, and it was mostly waited visit to Sri Lanka, the Prime Minister Modi's visit to Sri Lanka. So because we had been into like 2019 after the Easter attack, since that, like, people of Sri Lanka went through the hardship. Easter attack and the COVID and the post-COVID, then again the recession and 22 to the economic crisis at the time. So like India is a immediate neighborhood country, and also we feel that like a motherland for the Sri Lankans, and immediately they lend a hand to support for the economic revival, as well as especially with the food, medicine and the petroleum. Everything is immediately given by the government of India, the peoples of the India. So 2022 and 23, 23 was economic bounce back, not immediate overnight bounce back. It took some time, and the support of the government of India, and especially immediately the Sri Lankan government looked into the economic revival on the tourism aspects, because the Sri Lanka and the Indian is having a very good connectivity on the aircrafts. There are many flights operating to the many regions of India from Sri Lanka, and many aircraft, many airlines operating from that. So the Sri Lanka tourism looked immediately, and the government of Sri Lanka is also looked immediately to work closely with the India to develop the tourism. So as far as like the 2023-24 period, the tourism gave a huge boost to the Sri Lankan economy. And then secondly, export market is still like struggling, but still the tourism market gave the big boost. Only that money, the dollar has come to Sri Lanka. And also the Modi's visit was very, very mostly weighted because of we have a gratitude to the people of India and Honorable Sri Modi ji because of the support to given and lending hand during our difficult time. It's a great thing. The people of the Sri Lankans are most weighted event is happening now at the moment.
Okay. Also, Mr. Sithambram, your country has conferred upon Prime Minister Narendra Modi the Mitra Vibhushan Award. How important is this award in Sri Lanka? What is the kind of stature of the award? And what is the conferring of this award convey and signify according to you?
This is a significant and a unique award. It's it's unbelievable because this is the most prestigious award given to a foreign leader by the government of Sri Lanka. the peoples of Sri Lanka. So this is in my life. From my heart, Mitra Vibhushan Award is given to in our lifetime. It is the first time I'm hearing that is given to the Honorable Sri Narendra Modi ji, and it's just very privileged and honored and proud for Sri Lanka to given for the by PM Narendra Modi ji. And as you may aware about like that Sri Lanka and India is historically thousands of years we having a relationship. This is India and Sri Lanka is it's not a different country. It's all like goes along as Miss Veena very clearly explained that we are a very culturally oriented, traditionally, and the peoples to peoples having everything is all similarity in both nations. And also Sri Lanka is benefiting, I mean like exchanging a lot of programs in between both countries, especially the education, scholarship program, medical, tourism, export market, agriculture. If you take any industry, that like we absorb all the not solution like the all the inner know-how to obtain from the India actually. So because this is all like we are. I mean, like before 1948, many of the Indian people came and settled down here. About like nearly about 1.7 million of the Indian origins are still living in Sri Lanka. So this is like now is always having a great connectivity both countries. So this is the prestige award which is given by the Sri Lanka people to the people for India.
Mr. Sidambaram, as far as of course now, Sri Lankans are concerned as well, do they realize the value of the Indian friendship, the Indian support to them, the old, ties that our two countries enjoy? Is this valued in Sri Lanka enough according to you?
Of course, this is really, I mean, like, it's not like recent past of the values between the country. This has been there from like, if you go back to the Ramayana history and everything, the Lord Rama visited to Sri Lanka and he ensured that Ravana's brother is taken over by the country. So similarly like that, this is going on, and India and Sri Lanka is having a very good close relationship, and the people of the Sri Lanka is valued it. It's a one or two group of politicians giving a statement, or like they making because of their benefit of the political survival. They do kind of it's a statement only. It's not like coming from their heart. It's actually this is a statement only. But they really value between the relationship.
Mr. Sidambaram, thank you very much for joining us live from Sri Lanka with your perspective on this big story, on this much awaited visit. All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our other guests as well for joining us. Let's slip into a short break.